Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, the world is watching the Fall of Afghanistan and everybody is wondering what that means to the women there. We'll be talking to an author about that part of the world next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, the whole world is holding its breath right now because Afghanistan has fallen now, and we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of September 11th. A lot of people are wondering, was it all worth it? Are we right back to where we were before the September 11th attacks? To talk about that today, the author of In Women We Trust, N.H. Sakhia, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this is a work of fiction. I should point out that you grew up in Pakistan, and the characters in the book are based on Pakistan, but you're neighbors with Afghanistan. So let's before we get into the book, let's talk about your hopes and fears for Afghanistan.
Well, my hopes are very high right now because what they have declared, meaning Taliban just today, is that they are different from what they were 20 years ago, and they would allow the society to function properly, just like a regular, normal society, especially women. They have said that they will allow them to get education, be in the workforce. How they are going to do that, what kind of restrictions they will put, I think that's something which we have to be anticipating and hope that it will be the way we expect it to be. But at least this announcement today is very encouraging.
You were telling me before we started the show that a lot of the leaders that are in place right now are much more mature than the leadership from 20 years ago.
Yeah, so 20 years ago when they first came in power, they were not very familiar with the ways of the world. And I think in the last 20 years, they have had a lot of interaction with all the major superpowers or major powers of the world in every aspect of governing a place or society. So the hope is that they are more mature today as compared to what they were back then. And hopefully they will be in a position to run the society the way it is supposed to be run.
And of course, we're coming up on the anniversary of September 11th, and symbolically, 20 years is a round number. Do you think the U.S. is safe? Do the Afghanis have enough to deal with just trying to get their country together?
I think United States is as safe as it can be. I think back then, unfortunately, now we have a lot of restrictions as compared to what it used to be back then. In terms of us being monitored and all that. So yes, there's a price we are paying for safety and security, but I think we are more prepared now as compared to what we were back then. As far as they are concerned, remember, Taliban never attacked us, as far as what I can tell. It was the people who attacked us, they were harboring them. Yes, that was the problem, I think. And now that they have gone through a destructive phase, and now they have an opportunity to reconstruct their country, and hopefully they are wiser and more mature, the world would be a better place.
Yes. Well, that's a good transition to your book, In Women We Trust. And I love the title with the woe crossed out. Let's talk about this. It's a work of fiction, but it's really based on some images that you've been thinking about for a long time.
Yeah, so this book is basically inspired by real life events where a woman was basically made a scapegoat for taking the punishments for the supposed misdeeds of her brother. And it is based on the fact that there is a parallel or a justice system, the so-called justice system, which does not have the force of the law behind it, which is basically used as a vigilante justice system to give it a facade of justice and not just somebody who is powerful enough to do whatever they want to do. They want to do something with some way of creating a plausible escape for themselves so that they cannot be blamed for blatant vigilante justice.
Sure, and we don't want to give away what the book is all about and how it ends, but can you go over some of the main characters for us?
Yeah, so the characters, the book is set in Pakistan and region next to Afghanistan. And as it is understood throughout the world that there are societies which are still male-dominated, this book belongs to or is set in that part of the world where a person who had a lot of power just because of their family wealth and the land holdings and all that, they were supposedly wronged by somebody who is powerless. And this person who is powerful wants to revenge or take revenge for whatever misdeeds were done to him or his family. And he is basically constituting a panchayat, an informal meeting of the elders or a grand jury of a sort, so that he could get whatever punishment he wants to give to the culprit and not be held responsible for that. So he's just trying to create a cover for himself.
And what's the name of that character?
So that character is Taimur Barlas. He is the powerful landlord in that place, that part of the world. His name, as I said, is Taimur Barlas or Timur Barlas, and he is trying to take revenge against a family who actually works for him. The guy who he feels has done wrong to him is a 15-year-old gentleman, just a kid, adolescent, named Gul, and the revenge is being taken out against his sister, who actually is also a very young person who has faced discrimination all her life. And now even her parents are asking her to sacrifice herself for the misdeeds of her brother.
And what is her name?
Her name is Badri or Noor.
Wow. Now, I'm fascinated because I wrote a nonfiction book. I think writing fiction is tougher.
I believe so.
Did you have to get into the characters and could you imagine them, especially when you're writing dialogue?
Yeah, so essentially you actually live with that story because you are creating that story, but that story is already there. It's just that you need to transform it from your mind to the paper. And that process does get you involved in it. Sure. And the duration of the writing, you actually live with that. So yes, you have to live with that. You basically have to be in that zone where you can produce what you are feeling, those characters would be feeling.
Sure.
And you get into that character so that you can basically represent that character in the realistic manner, especially when you're writing dialogues. Yeah. Because each character has its own background, has its own educational level, socioeconomic level, and the way they look at the world. So when they interact with other characters, just like in the real life, everybody has a different take on the same set of facts and the way they express themselves. As a writer, you have to make sure that you are able to cover it from all angles, from their perspective, from the other person's perspective, and then obviously give the readers also a room to interpret what they want to take out of that24/7.
Well, I hear stories about Hollywood actors who get so immersed in the role that for the 10 weeks that they're filming, they 24/7 they are living this. Did you find yourself talking to your wife and your wife say, "Hey, come back to me"?
Well, it was far and few in between.
Yes.
But it sometimes does happen.
Sure. That's fascinating. We're going to put up on the screen a giveaway that you started. Talk about this because it's been very successful.
Yeah, so Goodreads had a giveaway of the book about a month ago, and we were offering like 35 copies, and we ended up getting requests for almost 7,000 people.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we were very surprised, as a first-time author who's just starting out,
yes.
Having that kind of response to the book, it was very encouraging.
You went viral, I'll tell you that. So we're also going to put up a book review, and you've gotten glowing reviews about this book so far. That has to be flattering.
Yeah, especially coming from the authorities like Kirkus and Publishers Weekly, because they are in the business of books for a long time, and they carry a lot of weight in terms of authenticity. So yes, it was really encouraging.
Now, even for the person who is not a fiction fan, there are some nonfiction things that you can get out of the book. What do you hope people get out of the book?
So this story basically tells about the human rights of being able to get justice if they are wronged. And that is something which is a duty of the collective human mankind to every person in that society. So when we talk about this book, or when I think about this book and being an attorney myself, I feel like we have to make sure that every society has a functioning system of justice so that nobody can be a victim of injustice and not have a recourse.
And you are a very successful attorney. We've been working together for a couple of months now, and you do interviews all over the country. Tell us about human rights and why that's so personal for you.
Well, so you have to understand the Charter of Human Rights was adopted just about 70 years ago. And we have been living on this planet for a very long time. So it took us a long time and a long journey to come to a formal acknowledgement that humans have rights, and those have to be respected by the humanity in its entirety. So that's why I feel like if we have come to a point where we are formally acknowledging that, and that acknowledgement should be preserved. It's very precious, and it should be acknowledged, it should be preserved, and wherever it is attacked, it should be defended.
Wow, I'm so inspired by you. Thank you for coming on the show. We're going to end with your website. nhsakhia.com is the website. The book is In Women We Trust. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.